What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined today by veteran fighter, coach, and now coach on the Oktagon Challenge, Paddy Holohan. Paddy, thank you very much for joining me. I think it's the first time I've ever interviewed you. I think I might have asked you a couple of questions at a press conference once upon a time, but it's great to finally sit down and have a chat with you. How are you today?
Oh, good. Definitely know the name for sure. Is there fourth time, really?
I think it might be. I think it might be. Yeah. So
one shot dodging each other in the river. We must have been dodging each other. So it was good to be know each other.
Very good. I remember we sat alongside each other at a Cage Legacy once, where it was an absolutely mad card, and the two of us were kind of jumping around. So that was the closest we got to it, I think. But it's like
that as well here. It was really cool.
Yeah, it's brilliant to sit down and do it. Come here, I want to ask you about the Oktagon, because we're at the time of recording, we're 4 episodes in. I've caught the 4 episodes, and you know what? Sometimes you watch those sort of shows and you're expecting it to be the Ultimate Fighter or a similar thing. We've seen shows before, but it's similar but different, isn't it? I've really enjoyed it so far. As someone who's been part of it and now watched the episodes, what are your thoughts, I suppose, first of all, on the episodes that have happened so far?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm the same. I didn't know what to really expect. And when we were out there, it was trying not to kind of like see how it would come across and just kind of like naturally let it be caught the way it was. And my own partner, Chelsea, basically sitting watching it with me is like, I need to watch the next one now, you know? So I'm actually going to be a little bit nervous, I think, watching it, just playing back. You just how the edit comes across or whatever which way, you know? So, yeah, so but all 4 episodes at the end of them being like, do you know what? That was actually really good. And the guys came across really well as well, which was brilliant.
I really do think they have edited it well to have the end of the episode really kind of catfish you into watching the next one early, because we continued, exactly. I would just to go back a little bit, how did you become part of this? Who kind of got you into it, and how did you end up the coach of the Ireland team?
We just kind of got I think I got a text message off Brian Lacey. I think I got one off Jake, the comedian guy as well. And we had a conversation about it. Had to work out some logistics, obviously, with council meetings and going to Slovakia for a month. But so we just shipped up the whole clan Holohan and we bounced over to Slovakia for a month and had a great experience. It was great to be actually kind of like dealing with guys who are not all my guys at that time or girls here, basically. So it was great to be able to kind of use some of the stuff that we use here, coaching methods and ideas and to be alongside Shem and bounce some of the ideas off himself as well. So it was a great opportunity for that. And then obviously getting away to Slovakia for a month was pretty cool. It's probably not a place I would have been without MMA, like a lot of other places in the world that I've been.
What is Slovakia like? It comes across as a really nice country on the episode so far. For someone who's there for a month, what was it like?
Oh, it's beautiful, really beautiful. And there's a lot of history, you know. There's a lot of political history as well, and a lot of kind of like really good things that I would be interested in. There was a little barman there, basically, who was really up to politics, and he actually knew a lot about Irish politics, and he was telling me kind of stuff, and I actually learned an awful lot from that man. Do you know what I mean? He'd be sitting there, maybe sipping on a pint on the weekend. We were getting through them, and he'd be sitting down, he'd sit at my table and tell me the conversations. And then the landscape, so because it's so close to Hungary where we were, so I remember one morning driving down to the way cut, and it was like 6 a.m., 5:30, 6 a.m. I'm driving along. And I'm driving through like poppy fields and lavender, and like the windows are down in the car. And I'm telling you, it was a little moment that I was like, you know what? I am just grateful to be alive here and just doing what I'm doing. You can smell it, you can nearly taste it, you know. And when you think of times in history, how this must have looked for people who came to these places who never who were never supposed to be there, you know, or you know, conflict around like this. It's such a beautiful place, and to hear of some of the stuff that has happened there, it's hard to imagine.
There was a bit of conflict over there in the house as well, to draw a bit of a comparison. And I think Dennis was kind of leading a lot of it. What was he like to work as work with as a coach? I know we've obviously covered a few of Dennis fights and stuff on Severe MMA. He's obviously a talented guy, but in interviews and stuff, I think people kind of knew what he was going to be like. But he must have been a bit of a challenge for you to work with for a while, I suppose, to keep him on the straight and narrow.
But no, he's actually a pleasure, to be honest. Dennis is a very intelligent guy, same idea with like kind of like I don't know, with business and politics, and he has an interest in that kind of stuff, So we had some kind of interesting conversations, and it was an absolute pleasure to work with. Listen, very coachable as well, in that way, and I think even if you watch his fight, you can see maybe in the fourth round he's a little bit, and he's looking away, and I'm like, stop, just focus. And then the second round, he picks up a lot of what myself and Shem was saying, and he implements it. There's even at one time where I think I kind of like seen Hassan's eyes, and he just had that like kind of like I'm done look in his eyes, and I scream at Dennis like, separate and strike, and he just separates and boom, 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 and he drops him, and then it was just one of them moments where, as you were saying, like a Cage legacy, it just grabs you the energy, and just it was pretty spectacular. But I'd say his back is sore because he's carrying a lot of the banter in that house. That's for sure.
Definitely, 100%. But one thing that really came across to me, and I'm glad you said it there about the cornering. I think in one of the first fights, there was about 4 people just roaring all at the same time, and by the last couple of fights, it was different. It was more your voice, maybe Shem kind of coming in the background as well. And you could see it in that Dennis fight. In the first 2 fights, it'd take you to say Teep 15 times before he actually teeped him, but then by the end of it he was actually doing it, and I suppose that's the reason. But what did you acknowledge that as a problem? Because it looked to me like it was a problem early, that there was too many people roaring, and then later on in the show it was kind of just you, and there was you were obviously the lead voice with Shim behind you.
Yeah, well, like anything, you got to kind of like change and tweak as you go along. I think there's actually in one time you'll hear in one of them fights where everyone is shouting, and I literally said, listen lads, stop for a second. At one time you hear it, because it can get like that, and that's normal cornering as well. There's times I've cornered with somebody and they've been shouting over you, and you kind of have to look at them and be like, listen, it's not that I'm right or you're right. It's like, but there has to be one voice here. It's so hard to follow one voice, let alone following 4 erratic voices in there, So it's and it can add a little bit to the chaos and the mayhem. So I think that's a lot of what coaching is, and leadership, I think, isn't it, in a way of like being able to kind of notify the problems and get everyone to agree as well. It's not just like, this is what I think is a problem and this is what we're doing, So at the time you say it to someone and they're kind of like, yeah, no, you're right. I'm just excited, So we kind of got that down after a little while, and then especially in the second round with Dennis, because Hassan was going to come to fight. Everybody comes to fight, in a way. They've got hands, they've got legs, and they're going to swing them in your direction and try to take away your conscience, So you've got to be on the ball. You've got to be focused. And you cannot take anybody for granted in this sport, That's when you get humbled, and you deserve to get humbled. So Dennis was able to win that fight. We didn't want to give Hassan any chances, you know what I mean? So the idea was just listen, get these tools off, and Dennis knows. Dennis is a clever fighter, you know what I mean, in a way. And in the minute he started finding the home for them shots, single shots, lots of fakes, bringing out the takedown and defending it, the fight was his.
I love the way you corner as well. Is that everything you say is an attack. It's whether Dennis got taken down on one stage and you were like, look for the triangle on the feet. He's like, look for the teep, look for the next thing. Like some people, and maybe it's not necessarily wrong, maybe it's for each individual fighter, but it's like, keep this position, settle in this position. And sometimes I know you obviously have to do that. Is that your coaching style always, or was that maybe specific to Dennis, like that? It's go for the finish, look for that big thing that's going to take the fight in your direction. Is that the way you kind of like to do it?
It's strategy. Every different fight is strategy, and I think if you can listen to your corner, you can get that good kind of relationship with your corner. It's like kind of you against them in a way, and your opponent's listening too. So you've got to factor that into the strategy. It's not like poker in a way, you know what I mean, where you kind of like your strategy is unknown and their strategy is unknown and there's unknowns. It's clear as day in front, and it's whoever is implementing the strategy as best. That's what I feel. So with that fight, the key was to keep Hassan working all of the time and make sure that he had to work all of the time, because I knew there was going to be a time where he was going to dip, basically. So in them positions, I think it's just important that the person who is, say, Dennis's position, he was in good condition, fit, and the other guy were expecting him to dip. You don't take any resting times, because if you're taking resting times, they're taking it, and kind of bank on the idea that the dip is going to come. When it comes, kind of like spurs you on because you're waiting for it as well. So that was kind of the approach with the Dennis's fight. So I think all fights are different. You know, sometimes there might be a situation where the person is really good at jiu-jitsu and you need to close your guard, but you need to make sure you're scoring points. So you don't want to maybe attack in triangles all the time because the person might pass your guard, and then you're in a worse position. So it's easy to be able to, I won't say easy, but a lot more strategic to close your guard and if there's not elbows in that section of it, but to score points. And you can win points off your back, you know, not that you should be aiming to do that, but don't let down your defense by trying to go on the attack. There's a great saying there is, defense is the art of survival and attack is the chance to win. And I think it's a great policy for life in a way, you know.
I like that. Love that. Oh, just on something you said there, Jiu-Jitsu has become like a big talking point recently in that there's less and less submissions at the top level, I suppose, all the time now. And I asked Mads Brunel about it there last week, and he was like saying modern Jiu-Jitsu just doesn't work for MMA, that it's gone too soft and they need to go back to the old kind of way of Jiu-Jitsu, and that if we want to start finishing fights again with Jiu-Jitsu, that's the way to do it, a more attacking, go for the submissions type of thing. What's your opinion as someone who's involved in Jiu-Jitsu and done Jiu-Jitsu matches yourself over the last few years and is coaching at the very highest level? Where do you see Jiu-Jitsu in MMA at the moment?
I think a good thing I heard a while ago was that Jiu-Jitsu is a tool for fighting. So it's a skill for fighting in a way, basically. So you will get some guys who do MMA and have probably never competed in Jiu-Jitsu, but they will have to implement Jiu-Jitsu in probably the most stressful environment, which is with punches and elbows and different rules that are not inside the Jiu-Jitsu center. Then you will get guys who compete at really, really high level in Jiu-Jitsu, but they probably never experienced that really, like say, I don't know, someone like Gordon Ryan fighting maybe in an MMA fight, it changes. So I don't think there's any right and wrong in it. Chris Potter has a great saying, and it's street art and sport. Basically, sport being that the arena that you are entered into with the referee and the rules, and that changes everything. So you kind of agree to the rules and then kind of piss and moan about it. You get what I mean in a way. So if you're in MMA, you could get someone who's maybe like a really solid blue belt and half guard and is good at able to keep that posture and stay out submissions. An MMA guard, I call it. And they could be someone who was a higher level jiu-jitsu rank in them by being able to tire them out and punch them and stay still, you know. But then you get guys that have high level jiu-jitsu sometimes, and maybe it could be based around spider guard and gi attacks and maybe leg locks and stuff like. And I'm not saying leg locks are not good for MMA, but again, you have to have specific strategy on it, because if you look at we'll go way back to a fight, Paul Harris and Alan Belcher. Great fight. I don't know if you've seen or check it out.
Alan Belcher stopped all of his attacks all the time, didn't he? All the leg locks.
Really, really good breakdown of he actually got into the position, undid the positions, then started landing the shots, and then Paul Harris's thing kind of just fell apart. But what a great sport is. We could talk about this all day, you know. But Jiu-Jitsu will be my first love. I love Jiu-Jitsu, but I love fighting.
And it's very interesting because, like, I don't know if you saw the Gary Tonin Tan Lee fight over in One Championship, where like Gary Tonin was in on going for a leg lock. If he'd got it, he would have won the fight. But he got hit with a hammer fist and he loses the fight. So, you know, that is just what you said there. One guy went on the attack and he got glory because of it. The other guy went on attack and he almost got glory because of it. But I suppose that's the way the cookie crumbles. As you said, we could talk about that for about an hour. Maybe we'll do it another time. I want to ask you about Shauna, and first of all, before we get to maybe Shauna specifically, for you to become the first person to both fight in the UFC and coach in the UFC from Ireland, I suppose it's one of those things you almost don't think about until it happens. And then when you see the first person say it or see the first person tweet, it's like, geez, that's what an accomplishment that is. And it was, even myself seeing it, I was like, geez, it's amazing, because I was looking at your record now. I think it's 9 years ago today from one of your UFC fights, and I think it's 8 years ago this week from your last UFC fight. It doesn't seem like that far away, but still, that's a very quick time to turn around from being a UFC fighter to being a coach with a UFC fighter as well. When you saw that you were the first person, and when that was kind of acknowledged by people, I know you're a proud Irishman and a very proud mixed martial arts fighter representing Ireland as well. But to have that as a major accolade, that must have been absolutely brilliant to even think about, I suppose.
Yeah, as like one of them things that kind of came that like as a coach you've got to be a little bit more. I am, and anyway, definitely more focused towards like it's about the fighter, it's about their journey and their next thing, and obviously things like this are great, and it does help on the journey to be able to say, listen, you're probably going to feel like this, you're probably going to feel like that, and to be someone I'm fairly in touch with my kind of like emotional side or my physical side as well, bringing the both that together when you're walking out into an arena to fight somebody who's trying to knock you out, and choke you. So it takes a certain type of mindset. So I think maybe it does help to be able to share that with fighters, but I've been coaching for many, many years. So all the way back into the team that I came up in, to me, I always considered it as an apprenticeship, So I'm fairly blessed to the team that I came up in and to be surrounded by some of the people that I was surrounded by that are household names in the sport now, and I'm a student every day. So from that time, I have been coaching. I have been to guys like Dylan Took and then to Ashland Daly and Richie Smullen. I've done corners for all of them guys, and I did it right then to benefit them. But I learned in that process as well. So and then opening the Holohan Martial Arts here now this was always a dream of mine to bring and make a community within my community, basically. Because what martial arts done for me is what I wanted to do for what I've seen it can do, and what I wanted to do for other people is I've created this. Actually, the Coach Shem, basically the assistant coach on Oktagon with me, he had a little video out there. If you don't get to see it, you should see it. It's incredible. It's really inspiring. And when he says something about it, basically, he kind of describes what I'm doing here and saying like, this is what I want to do when he's finished. And it's great to see that, because that's what we need. We need really good male and female role models in our communities, and people who ain't swallowing bullshit, you know what I mean? And just able to kind of see the wood from the trees, if you must, and not be afraid to stand there and say what is so, and we need more of that in our community. So that's what I'm proud to be the health coach here and do that. And then to work with Shauna she's an incredible human being. She's so motivated. MMA is still a different sport from what she would have been used to coming up all her life. So I think she's still making some transitions there, not just in the skill wise, but sometimes in the way MMA is. Like Shauna wants to fight every single weekend, So, and she would too, twice on a night, because that's what she's been doing for her whole life. So, one of the hardest things is trying to explain to her that it is a little bit harder to get matched in MMA, and you have to be a little bit more patient in what you're waiting on fights and stuff. And now that she's in the UFC, I think a lot of the fights will be judged a little bit more on where the show is going to be, where the circus is in town that week, so Manchester, London, Dublin, of course, so depending on where the shows is, I think that's when the shouts for fights and stuff like that's going to come, and I'm looking forward to seeing her getting back in there and righting our wrongs, you know what I mean? Because no better person.
I'll pop back to Sean in a second, but I have to ask you about the gym, because ever since the days of the 10,000 hours documentary that Graham and the lads over in Severe made it, and to the work you've done in the community, you've always been a community driven guy. For you to have, say, someone in the UFC, obviously, as you have at the moment, but also a community-driven gym, that must be tough, because, they're almost... It's almost an opposite, that you almost need to be selfish. You almost need to put everything into fighters that are going to reach the top level, yet you still want it to be a community gym. Plus, the pandemic just went where it was very tough. People weren't allowed to go to the gym and all of that. And I suppose maybe that politics thing is a discussion for another day. But the financial part, the physical part itself of actually doing it in the way you want to do it. Have you found that an easy thing, or have you found it a tough thing?
I'm so blessed to have such a great team here. That's there's no secret in that, Sean. My partner Chelsea is an incredible part of what I do as well. So a lot of the stuff through COVID and I don't know, figuring out how we were going to make it and all this kind of stuff would have been down to her helping me as well. So I definitely have to give credit to her. And then And then one of my best friends, basically, who I started on the same day, is like the kids coordinator here in the gym. So we have a kids program, development program that goes from 4 years of age all the way up to 13 years of age. Then they pass over to the teens program, which is my own, basically, and then the idea of that links into the adult. Now I want to go to the UFC, basically. So I've had some kids here that are like, we're open 6 years. So if they started with me at 14, 15 years of age, they're coming to 20 years of age and they have been training with me for 6 years, but they weren't training in a place where it's like, right, you got to do it. You got to make it. They were training in like fun, understanding, collecting the skills, breaking it down into like jigsaw pieces rather than like, you've got to be bleeding sweat. You've got to, this kind of stuff. Because it's very, very easy to lose the love when it gets really, really competitive. And if you see the fighters that are really good fighters, they love it. They still love it. Like you see Conor training and like some people will get half of the money, even a quarter of the money that Conor has, and they will stop. So what gets us there, and like someone like Conor, what keeps us there? It keeps us moving. It keeps us going. So, I feel if you open a professional gym in a way, you can end up with a lot of Madonnas, you know what I mean? a lot of people drinking from the same well, and then when it comes to being a professional fighter, you're trying to provide for your family. It's not an easy place to withdraw, basically, sponsors and fights and winning them fights and getting both your purses and then invest in that, all of that. So what I try to do here is trying to teach how to make it, how it actually can work for you. So you could be a fighter in the gym, and then you could be interested in coaching. And I'll tell you to make sure that you're maybe doing your coaching search now and focusing a little bit on coaching and understanding that I don't want my guys to just be living week to week on basically privates and stuff like that where they don't know what's coming down the hill. So we're trying to set some stuff up with the colleges basically here. We're very close to, there's a talent university across the road and some of the national schools, and creating basically projects in them schools where I'm good. I'm already so busy with what I do in the council and stuff. We're just creating some of these projects and bringing some of the guys with me and then shadowing me and then basically be able to kind of create their own path or understanding. And the most important part, giving back to the sport overall. So I think community gyms and that sense of understanding, like someone comes to my desk and I know their name and we know each other, I think that's important rather than it just being a kind of like, I don't know, a ladder that everybody's trying to get to, because not everyone's the same and not everyone wants to be in the UFC. Some people like coming into a factory-based gym on a bleeding Friday and having a few spars, in a nice way. And it's a way of exercising your demons, and then you go to work and you make a lot of money on a Monday selling pigeons or something, So
that's the way to do it. Right, let's back to Shauna for a second. I'm looking at her record here, right? She made her professional debut in 2022 and she fought in the UFC in 2023. That must, as someone who, loves to build people up and build them up slowly, it was great. Obviously, she got the opportunity to go to the UFC, but was there any thought of like, this is a bit too quick? And I know she's brilliantly talented and she'd won all her fights and everything like that, but was to jump straight to the very top, I suppose, before we get to anything else, what was your thought at that stage? Was there any thought to turning it down?
At that time, basically, trying to find Shauna a fight, a 115 fight outside the UFC or outside any of the promotions that these fighters were signed to, because at 115, people have to realise that if you're a 2-0, you're a female fighter and you're 115, you're 2-0, 3-0, there's a good chance you're now signed to a show like, could be Aries, it could be Combat, it could be Invicta. So to get single fights without having to sign a contract for a different show was very hard, you know what I mean? And then the idea of, say, the Invicta show. Invicta is a great show. Shannon's a really good person to deal with and stuff like that. And I'd been there 10 years ago myself with Ashlyn Daly. So it was kind of like that kind of linking Shauna in, that she had 2 fights there. But if Shauna hadn't have made the move to the UFC, she probably wouldn't have fought since her last fight in Invicta. So think of it. I think Invicta have a show in Boston now. Basically, Danny Nealon's defending the title there. It would not make sense for Shauna to be hanging on that long for a fight. So she had a fight in between that, and then she's waiting on her next assignment from the UFC. But you have to think of it like that as well, you know. So her going into the UFC, I think there's girls in there that she had a fairly close fight, and it's not easy getting over that first fight. You can see it, the amount of kind of UFC for Irish UFC fighters that tried to get over that wall the last little while, and incredible talented guys as well. Do you know what I mean? And just have not been able to get that fourth one in, but they're in there now, and that's the way to do it, you know. So yeah, and the UFC come back to Dublin, it will be a crime to not have Shauna Bannon on that fighting someone, you know, and representing. She's the second ever Irish female fighter to fight in the UFC. What a banner that is. Like, think about the amount of people that live here in Ireland, and of all of the things that people have done in martial arts and MMA and stuff like that, she is the second person to be walking down a path, basically, Aisling Daly being the first to the biggest show, which is the UFC, which to me, when someone puts the gloves on, that's what they want to fight for. They want to fight in the UFC, you know. So yeah, I think the timing was right, you know. She had to go for it, and it wasn't a one-way fight in the Bruna Brasil fight, you know. Shauna had some good moments there, you know what I mean, and I don't know, on different days, different rounds go different way. She actually landed 50 more strikes than Bruna in the whole fight, in a way. So now I'm not saying that she won the fight clearly, and let's knock them out or choke them so much secure, you know. So we're not having that argument. But I think she belongs there.
It was an interesting fight because I think, as someone who's watched all of Shauna's fights and, you know, picked her going into the fight, It was I don't know, it was a bit of Oktagon jitters or whatever it would be, but she got better and better and better throughout the fight. And it feels like if she'd fought the third round 3 times, she would have won the fight. Now, that's very easy to say and very unfair. It's obviously a very biased Irish point to look at it from, and Bruna Brasil had a great performance and she deserved to win it. But that must give you heart for the next time, right? To be able to show that to Shauna and go, here, look, if you do this, we forget about the jitters now. We won't have them anymore for the next time you come in. You're well able to get there. And there's been a lot of negativity around Irish MMA recently because of the results. And I, like, as you said, there's only 2 women who've ever done it. There isn't many men who've ever done it either. Let's be honest. There's only a handful ever. And people are crying because we're not getting the results. But the fact just to be there and then we kick on from this is the main thing. But on Shauna specifically, as you look forward with her, you must take a little bit of heart from what happened in this, as you said, a closer fight maybe than people remember, but also everyone says it, that first UFC fight, that first UFC round is just so tough. And look, that's the reason why she lost the fight, because of the first UFC round.
Is that fourth round or fourth fight, you're looking down, like, UFC, I'm like, I'm usually sitting up at home watching Bruce Buffer walk into I understand. I absolutely understand. In my own fight, my first ever fight, I still remember that feeling. I remember going, I'm going for this. I do not care if I end up unconscious, choked out, and I kind of carried that with me in there, and I feel it helped me, and it kind of shook my opponent a little bit. And my opponent on that day was decent too, and I think he just never got going. So what I think happens here, and it's not just Shauna specific here basically, but there's times I've done this, a lot of times when I've been coaching and I've said to somebody, listen, and they mightn't even be down 2 rounds. They might be down, it might be close 1-1 in a way. And I would say to them, listen, you need to win this round. If we don't win the fight if we don't win this round. And it's like they put down the bags of pressure of like, oh my God, like I'm losing. And it means the idea of like, that's already like, it's a reality to them there. And they go out and have the best ever round. And they go and perform. And we had a guy one time, he lost 2 rounds. Marix, his name is, and he lost the first 2 minutes, I think. And then he just turns on basically in this last minute and goes and armbars the guy in the last 10 seconds or something. And it's kind of an example I use sometimes to the guys of like, just put the bags down. Like, winning and losing has nothing to do with fighting. The fighting part is separate to what the results are going to be. We've seen some terrible results, even though someone has fought really well and they didn't win or they lost or whatever. But the performance and going out there, that's what I think fighters should be concentrating on, performing and doing your thing. And everybody is dangerous. Everybody at this level is going to come across and try and hit you. And it's when the dip happens, basically, that the true fighting comes through, you know. So, yeah, and on the day, Bruna was big on the day. I didn't expect Bruna to be that big. I don't know how she got that big on the day, but she was big on the day. You know, not that that came into the thing of the fight, but definitely landing shots. And as time goes on in the rounds, it has its effect, you know. But yeah, so psychological. It's a mad game.
Shauna, you mentioned her background, and obviously coming from that kickboxing, taekwondo type of background. When you get a fighter like that who has that background, is it almost tougher than having someone who has a blank canvas to actually make them an MMA fighter? Or obviously, you know, maybe in the striking realm it isn't, maybe in the jiu-jitsu and the wrestling realm it is. But what is the kind of the process from getting a fighter like that who's obviously talented in one discipline to have them in the UFC? Now, that's a long-winded answer there that could take 2 hours, but maybe have the cliff notes, maybe.
I'll shorten it down for you. It's called 0 point of knowledge, basically. A coach that trains with he doesn't do MMA, but does jiu-jitsu, but the idea of it is 0 point of knowledge. So if somebody comes in here, 16 years of age, I've never trained before, they're athletic, they probably, I don't know, done some maybe football or hurling or Gaelic football or something, and they just listen to me. They don't really have an opinion, basically, on what it is. Now, and I don't want to sound like that people shouldn't have an opinion. Everyone should absolutely have an opinion. But the knowledge base is basically MMA should be the opinion, you know. Like, so in a little few years, if this 16-year-old comes back to me at 20 and goes, I was looking at this guy and he does it this way. And I'm like, yeah, that's good. Do that, you know. It's kind of coming from a place of understanding. Regarding other sports and merging them in MMA, just from what I've seen over the years and stuff like that, is that not everything just fits. Everything needs to be kind of like chipped and chopped and tailor-made a little bit, you know. So boxing doesn't just transfer straight into MMA, and jiu-jitsu doesn't just transfer straight into MMA. You can't sit up and guard in MMA and play like posture in MMA. You've got to adapt the chest to chest, elbows on the inside kind of position. Kickboxing, you blitz. Although you can blitz, like say Shauna has a really good blitz and really extensive kickboxing record. When she came here the first time, she would blitz and then be taken down, or blitz and then be taken down. And I remember, shit, what's happening, you know? And to watch her coming through this and all was incredible, you know. So it's very easy, very hard to put a white belt on, basically, after being at the top of your sport, you know. So it can be a little bit tricky, you know. I think wrestling is probably the biggest transfer that transfers straight to MMA. But then you start adding in like guillotine chokes and stuff like that, and then you've got to shave wrestling then, because what I say, if you can't take a wrestler down, let them take you down and sweep them. That's kind of, it's a jiu-jitsu wrestling, but in that way. But yeah, I find if you're wrestling with high level wrestling guys, they take you down, but you can choke them and catch them in guillotines and stuff like that. And we had a guy here that's on the Moldovan wrestling team, basically, and solid brick wall he was, and he'd fly you through the air, but he would be guillotined by the time we got to the end, you know. So it doesn't all transfer. So 0 point of knowledge for people who don't have a big extensive martial arts background, and then the idea of understanding and debating and discussing with an athlete who has, and then coming to a reasoning why we do it this way, why we do it that way. And then some people, they just don't want to listen to you. You're here to hold the water. It's like, and I say to these guys, I'm not that guy. Yeah, so if you need someone to hold your water, bring your brother.
I love it. A last couple of questions, Paddy. I really appreciate time. You see it with Shauna. Like, you see that she's become a martial artist. Like, if you didn't know she had the background and you watched a couple of her Invicta fights, you might know she has a bit of a striking background the way she moves, but she's looked good on the ground. You know, she's got people to the ground and dominated there herself. So she's a well-rounded martial artist as well. The last thing I really want to ask you, and you've kind of said it already in terms of you have to kind of wait for the UFC, but ideally for you, when would you like to see Shauna back there? Is there any talk of when she might be back in there?
Well, there's a December show. I think that's in Vegas. Well, Vegas is kind of like the west side. Am I right in saying the west side, basically?
I always get them mixed up. Well, Vegas is not
California and all. Think of Tupac and all. California, west side. It's the west side.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the west side, basically, where I'd kind of prefer that to be on the east side. I know that sounds thing, but it's nearly the same amount to fly from Ireland to Vegas. You know, Vegas is a little bit different. It's a little bit dry and stuff like that. So now she would settle in there, no problem, and fight there. But how would Dublin sound? Dublin would be nice. Now it would be nice to know that, like, we're coming in Dublin. It's March. It's on. That's it, and I'm pretty sure Shauna would like that as well. So we're waiting to see the calendar and see what kind of basically the geography of where they're going to be and stuff like that, and what makes sense. So and until then, Shauna's just staying sharp or working on a little bit of stuff over the last little while. You know what I mean? She's been away. She's been doing some stuff in Thailand as well. And I think this little break is good for her as well, because she's been on for so long and she's so hard to turn off and just be like, just sit down and have a seat and have a rest for about. So it's great to see that she's having a little bit of downtime this time, but she's still training really, really hard. But she doesn't obviously have an opponent in the minds just yet. So so it's good to get that time as well. So what do they say? Prepare when you're in times of peace, and in times of in times of peace you prepare for war, and in war you prepare for peace, or whatever it is. So that's kind of where we're at now.
Lovely. I can't wait for it. And I think, look, someone I think it was Paul Hughes I was talking to last week, and he said few people lost recently, the Irish fighters, but what's it going to be like when they all get to Dublin and win? It's going to quickly turn around. So I think that could be the case for Sean and Kiefer and a few more of them as well who get in there, and I think we'd all be delighted to see that. Paddy, thank you very much for your time. People out there, if you're watching this, you want to check out the Oktagon Challenge, it's on over on YouTube. It's all free on YouTube, so check it out over there. Paddy's one of the coaches on that, and a bit of light relief as well, saying thank God I'm not in this house and everything. Absolutely brilliant. I love I just want to say a quick thank you to Pavel and Andre and Brian Lacey and the guys over there, and all the Irish lads on the Irish team, and obviously Shem, the assistant coach with me there and stuff like that. And you did incredible work over there, and you should be so proud of how you came across representing the flag. And it was an absolute honour to lead you guys behind that flag, you know, and the camaraderie I think you see, it just seeps through the screen, you know, and that was real. That wasn't made, you know what I mean? That was just created. So get comfortable, settle in, and just take over. Paddy, thanks very much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean.